and I have put it there in the 10 point. My inclination, and put aside all the debate around sovereignty and so on and so forth, and other technical matters. Just like we're debating around the bond notes, the technicality of it and so on. I think that we should put that on the rand as part of the debate to say why not or why. So in my why should we go the rand route is that it has a much more solid proposition of saying, well, if we start dishing out, for example, well, the government said it's going to bring in the bond notes in October, and the president has said it's going to happen, so we don't really have a choice here. So I would, in the interim, why don't we start disbursing the rand? It's part of the multi-currents in this basket that we have. So you disburse the rands. I think the fear of externalization is much more because the US dollar has been commoditized. So it's no longer a medium of exchange. It's actually like gold. So people are buying US dollars to take them out of Zim to go anywhere in the world. So but you can't do that with the rand. You can only do that in South Africa. But if South Africa, if we're joined at 70% of our economic activity with South Africa, then it augurs well that if there is that kind of liquidity between us. So if we start using the rand, it, in some significant way, in my view, it will curtail externalization. But more importantly, not so much the externalization, but more importantly, it will begin to align ourselves to regional parity because we are uncompetitive compared to our neighbors, South Africa, or even Botswana, or Mozambique, or Zambia. We are very uncompetitive. I mean, their currencies have shattered against the US dollar. So we are not competitive. So if we start using the rand and we start adjusting our prices to be in parity with the region, I feel that we begin to now have some kind of exports that are competitive, and we also begin to adjust our costings and our business models in line with the region's biggest economy, and that works for us. At the end of the day, it can only work for us. So for me, yes or no, I would say that we must really go the rand. If I was given a choice, I would go the rand ahead of bonds and then deal with the FCA reconfiguration, the RTGS system, which is the local RTGS and the regional RTGS as well. And then things begin to work better. For me, I think that there will be liquidity in the market. And you don't also have to suffer too much the controls around printing a new currency. You just have to buy the other currency. Meeting with the Reserve Bank governor was something that was inevitable after his pronouncements of the recent 8-point monetary policy review statement. We met, I was invited to the ZNCC breakfast meeting, which the governor was going to address business people and so on. I was one of those that wanted to clear a few things concerning bond notes, concerning the fiscal disciplines, the treasury bills. There was a whole lot of things that were still very unclear. I raised those issues in that meeting, but I realized that I think they deserved maybe a one-on-one meeting with the governor. I made an appointment, and I actually indeed, the following day I met with the governor. Amongst other things we discussed, and he made clear of his statement and his policy statement. And it was important that we brought him into the constituents that I was part of, which is church. So I offered to invite him to a church, leaders of the church, that is bishops, pastors, evangelists, prophets, and apostles and so on, and priests. So we did that through the ZHSOD. So we met on Monday the 6th of May in a very reasonably attended, I think we were around 200 of these leaders together. It was just for leaders only. And the meeting was for him to clarify certain positions, but it was also to engage with him the concerns that were there. Certainly, the generality of the church has struggled with the whole bond notes. I think that the biggest struggle there is not been just the bond notes, but it is probably the way it was communicated. Number one, because people are still smarting from wounds of the hyperinflation era, and we felt that the first thing that needed to be done was to build trust and confidence, particularly when you're having a slight policy shift even in your monetary policy, because up until now the governor had really built a very strong reputation since he was in office to say, look, we will do this. Whenever he was dragged into some kind of people just throw things into the public domain, he was very quick to correct that and say, no, this is not it. When people felt that we're now going back to the Zim dollar, he was there. Even the Minister of Finance would come back and reiterate, we are still on course here. Pronouncements about our engagement with IMF and so on. I think there was a lot of confidence building that was taking place. But the way that the bond notes were then articulated in his statement just almost shattered everything that was built, because people then ran for cover. So you then can't just go and enforce and command and tell people that it is what it is. But there still has to be the trust building and confidence building processes, and that is more communication, more interaction, more explanation, and that's why we invited the governor to do that. That even though his points were valid, the people were still afraid of these bond notes, and they are still, even up until now, they're still afraid of these bond notes until there is certain articulations that begin to show confidence, and I think that is the purpose that is done. As far as then the outcome of the meeting, yeah, I think it went reasonably very well. It still left people still saying we are still concerned about the bond notes. They are. And it would be wrong for me to say, look, after that everybody went home and say, oh wow, bring them on. They're still very concerned at this point. So it is a journey of trust building and confidence building if we're going to go in that direction. So the governor then asked us to come up with what would be the conditions if, seeing that he'd already said that this will come in October. He said, look, what would be your conditions? I thought that was honorable of him to say, look, you give me the conditions. I said, okay, if we are going to have them, because if we don't have a choice, then here are our conditions. And the conditions is what we articulated. Number one, we would like this to have an expiry date. And the consensus was that it can't be beyond 18 months. And that was just the consensus. Whether it then is technically right, is legally right, whatever. And I'm just talking about just the guts of what the people were there. So technically it was, so we said beyond, not beyond December 2017. The second one was that those who are printing the bond notes, the second one was that we want an independent board to monitor the printing, the distribution of these bond notes in line with what would be the reason for it. The third one was that we would want the IFIs, the International Financial Institutions, to form another committee to supervise the implementation of this. So we felt that with the road that had been walked with IMF, African Development Bank, World Bank and Afrexim Bank, they would be also interested to make sure that this does not get abused in any way or misused. Let me just say maybe misused. So that was the third. The fourth was that the printer of these bond notes had to be accountable to the two independent body in the IFIs. So those are what we felt. Now, even putting those, people are still saying we are still uneasy about it. But at least we put some kind of mitigation proposal to the governor. So we see how this works out, we see how this goes forward. But otherwise, yeah, it is a continue. We committed to him that we will continue engaging him. We'll continue working with him. I think that the governor himself needs our support. We're also very clear in our discussions that any of his monetary policy review are tactical to the fiscus. So until the fiscus is handled in a structural reform process, his tactical reforms or tactical processes to mend the monetary policies would also not work. And I think that point was made very clear to the governor, that it would also not work at the end. So he agrees. In fact, in the meeting, he agreed to what we were recommending, that look, the reforms must run concurrently with what he was proposing, so that at least we come out of where we are. Otherwise, we have a long way.
For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat.